Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our dear sisters. The message reads like this. Hello, my brother, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? My brother, I come from a very large family. My grandfather, he was said to have a lot of wives. Even my father, he had a lot of wives as well. So by the age of 16, my mom, since she came at least from a family that had some money, so she was the one who was favored a lot by her mother-in-law, who was my grandmother. Some of my father's wives, they were hated a lot by my grandmother because they could not bring anything to the table. I suspect that my mom, she was given these charms by my grandmother because there was this other time when I was 16 years of age, when I was suddenly rushed to the village. It was me and my mom who traveled in a car, and we returned back to the village where my father grew up. And when we arrived in the village, this was like late at night. But what shocked me was that we found my grandmother. She was standing in the middle of the compound, and we actually got out of the car, greeted her, and she did not respond. It was as if she was just a statue, and she was holding that winnowing basket until we had entered into her kitchen, you know, those round kitchen that are made out of mud. And when we had entered into her kitchen, we found out there was a man, but this man, he just vanished. This was quite scary for me to see a man, then that man suddenly vanishes. This man, he was black, as if the man, he was made out of charcoal, the way that he was dark, like really black. And after that, my grandmother walked in back into that chicken, and my grandmother walked in back into that kitchen, and she started to have a conversation, a very funny conversation with my own mother. And what they were talking about, I could not even understand, because at that time they were saying that I was supposed to get married, and I was only still 16 years of age, and I was not yet ready to get married. So my brother, the next morning, me, my mother, and one of my father's daughter, who was way older than I was, that one, she was ready to get married. In fact, there was a man who was willing to marry her, and there were actually dates that had been set when this man was supposed to come and pay her bridal price. And she was also taken by my grandmother and my mother so that we can go to this other traditional healer who seemed to be very friendly with my grandmother, as if they knew each other very well. When we were there, the thing that they made me and my elder sister to do, it was quite strange. We were told to sit cross-legged, and we were facing each other. This traditional healer, he uses a snake to heal his people. He had this python, but this python, it was still a baby python, but still it was long. Then as we were sitting cross-legged like that, and this snake came and it coiled itself around my stomach area. Then it started to move as it was headed for my cousin sister. It then went and it started to lick her own tummy. And mind you, my brother, at that time, when we were sitting cross-legged facing each other, my grandmother had made us to wear these t-shirts that looked almost the same. So we were told to lift those t-shirts so that we can reveal our stomachs. And this python started to lick a stomach area, and after that the traditional healer then gave this python, I don't know if it was water or some medicine to drink, and it started to vomit. This was the first time that I ever saw a snake vomiting. It vomited on top of my sister's stomach, and then it looked at me only once. Then the traditional healer gave me to drink whatever which he had gave that python to drink. I tasted this thing. It tasted as if it was chocolate. It was really sweet. From there on, we were told to go outside, and my grandmother and my mother, they continued with the ritual ceremony. But when we were sitting outside, my cousin sister kept on complaining, telling me that she was having this stomach cramps. She kept on complaining until she passed out. When I saw that she had passed out, I screamed out loud. But my grandmother, my mother, and that traditional healer ignored me. Even the people that were there just ignored me. This was like a horror movie that was happening before my eyes, because the way that my cousin sister, the way that she was doing when she had passed out, it was like she was under a demonic possession. At the same time, she had this white form that was coming out. All of this, it happened when her eyes were wide open. She was not blinking. She was not doing anything. Even the way that she was breathing, it was quite scary. After my grandmother and my mother had finished the rituals that they were doing with that traditional healer, when they had locked themselves up, after they had came out of the consultation room, that was when my cousin sister regained her consciousness, and she asked me what had happened, and I could not explain. She even asked me why the hell I was so scared of her like that. I could not even respond to her. My grandmother simply came and touched her stomach and also touched my own stomach, and she told us to get up so that we can return back. When we returned back, my mother walked very fast. When we were approaching my grandmother's compound, she went and she reversed a car, and then she told me to get into the car, and we returned back to the capital city. My brother, at that time, that was when I fell in love with this guy who was way older than I was, my brother. This was like my first husband. When I was 16 years of age, when I got married to this man, he was 40 years old. Later on, I then found out that the reason as to why I had gotten married to this man, it was because my mother's brother wanted to become part of this older guy's company. This guy, after he had married me, he then passed away, and this made me to hate my uncle a lot, because I felt as if he was the one who was responsible. I only stayed with my husband for less than a year. By the age of 17, I was married off again to another man. When I was 30 years old, after struggling for a very long time to fall pregnant, even my cousin sister, she was struggling also to fall pregnant, and as for her, she has never conceived. But I have given birth to 2 kids, 1 boy and a girl. And when I returned back to my mom about this issue, because I had stayed in this marriage for about 13 years, not being able to give birth, and when I spoke with my mom about this issue, she then said, "Oh, I had almost forgotten about what I was supposed to do, what your grandmother told me to do when you want to give birth." But my brother, is it even possible that a mother can actually forget that her child is failing to conceive for about 13 years? My mom said, "Wait here." She went into her bedroom, and when she returned, I saw that she was holding this rope that was made out of different colors. She then took that rope and she tied it around my stomach, and she told me that I was not supposed to remove this rope that she had tied around my waist area until it would have fallen off on its own. Even when I was making love to my husband kept on asking me the reason as to why I had this weird looking rope over my waist. I just could not even give him a response. I only told him that this was what the prophet had told me to do. So I wore this rope around my waist for about 2 weeks until it fell off. When it fell off in that same month, that was when I saw that I had fallen pregnant. I returned back to my mother, and I wanted to ask as to why she had waited for 13 years so that she can do this ritual ceremony on me. That was when my mother told me everything that had happened. My mom told me that she was called by my grandmother at that time when she quickly rushed with me back to the village She said that your grandmother called me and she told me that she had a vision. In her vision, she had made me to become barren, and this was by mistake because she actually wanted me to conceive because she favored my mother a lot. So in her club, the club of witches, she had been told that amongst her granddaughters, she was supposed to choose one who was going to be barren for the rest of her life. So when she was casting her spells, I then appeared in front of her instead of my cousin sister, that one who was about to get married, and she mistakenly then made me to become barren because at that time she said that she could not control that spirit of witchcraft that was controlling her. That was when she called my mom so that she can quickly bring me back to the village. By the time that I was brought back to the village, she had already communicated with one of the traditional healers who was also part of their witches club, who was a member in that same club that she was in. And then when we were taken there, they knew everything that they were doing. And when that python had coiled itself around my waist, it was licking my cousin sister's stomach area. What it was actually doing was that it was actually transferring that energy, like a spirit or the gift that can make a woman to be able to conceive, removing that energy from my sister's womb and implanting it back into my own womb. That was the sacrifice that they did on my cousin sister without her knowledge. She actually thought these were some blessings that were being given to her by my mom and my grandmother since she was about to get married. So these were the rituals that my own mother and my grandmother did. We stole my sister's womb and it was implanted into my body, and my womb that had been cursed, my womb that cannot conceive, it was then taken back. That python was actually vomiting on top of my sister's stomach. It was vomiting my womb, the one that had been cursed by my grandmother, the one that can't conceive no matter what. This is what happened to my brother. And the other things that happened to my daughter is that after my grandmother had passed away, my daughter always has these nightmares. And sometimes I feel like my daughter is not even a real human being because sometimes the things that she does, they are quite strange. There was one night when she suddenly appeared and disappeared. She appeared in my bedroom. My husband was fast asleep. I woke up and I saw that my daughter, she was just standing there and she was not even wearing anything. As for my kids, I make sure that when they go to bed, they wear their pajamas. But on that night, when she suddenly appeared and disappeared in my bedroom, she was not wearing anything. It was as if she had entered into my bedroom by mistake. It's like she wanted to go into someone's bedroom, but ended up landing in my own bedroom. As for my husband, he does not have a say over my life because my mom assisted me to give my husband a love potion. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our sister right there. Strange things do happen in this world. African magic. Just imagine transferring a womb that does not conceive, that cannot carry a child, from one woman to another. African magic. Can science do that?